10 insane celebrity homes. Number 10. Kim Ye. Best known by their one-name moniker, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are one of the most famous celebrity couples on the planet. Is it any surprise that they live in a home that most of us could only dream of spending even one night in? Though the couple has been in the news for negative reasons as of late, Kim being robbed and Kanye for having some supposed mental breakdown, at least they have a palace in which to spend their idle time. The couple purchased this massive Hidden Hills abode for $20 million, but weren't entirely satisfied with it, so they renovated the place. Now the 5-acre property, or tiny town, reportedly includes a 2-story playroom in case a 1-story room fully devoted to children wasn't enough, a full-size movie theater, a gym, and a basketball court. No rap mogul's house is complete without a sound studio, and of course, Kim had to have a full spa on site, so those were built as well. They even bought their neighbor's property to make room for all of the additions they wanted. North and St. West are either the most fortunate or the most soulless children on the planet. Number 9. Donald Trump. Trump and his wife Melania may not be staying at their $100 million 66th floor penthouse in Trump Tower, New York, as much now as they will be taking up residence at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for the next 4 years. While the White House is lovely, Trump has plenty of reasons to not want to move out of his Big Apple residence. The ridiculous apartment is 3 stories whose walls, floors, and columns are covered in marble. The platters, vases, and furniture are accented with gold. Greek statues and art dominate the interior, as well as flattening, grandiose portraits of Trump and his family. Residing so high up means that the penthouse is witness to an amazing view of the city, specifically Central Park and the Manhattan skyline. Hopefully, the president won't be thinking too much about his lavish digs while he's busy with his new job. Number 8. Sinatra's Paradise. In a nod to his character in the movie From Here to Eternity, Sinatra named this property in Palm Desert, California, Via Maggio. The property is 7.5 acres and features 3 buildings that have a combined total of 8 bedrooms, 3 kitchens, 9 fireplaces, and 12.5 bathrooms. The property also includes a lighted tennis court and a helipad. Sinatra commissioned the property in the 1960s as a place to get away from the hustle and bustle of being a celebrity. Sitting over 4,000 feet above the Coachella Valley, Old Blue Eyes picked a good spot to suit his needs. The entertainers passed away in 1998, and the second owners currently have the house for sale at a price of just under $4 million. Number 7. Lil Wayne. Weezy has been trying to sell his Miami Beach property for 2 years now without success. He lowered the price over the course of 2016 from $18 million to $12 million. Celebrities often find it difficult to sell their homes, especially if they have made modifications to suit their specific tastes. The rapper's house is 15,101 square feet, has 9 bedrooms and bathrooms, a professional recording studio, movie theater, and a rooftop skate park. The beautiful open interior home sits on the water in Miami Beach. In August of 2016, a prankster called the cops saying that someone had been shot and was bleeding at the home. Police arrived to find Lil Wayne asleep, and after finding nothing in the home, left without further incident. It was the second time such an incident has happened since Wayne purchased the house, and could be why he seems so desperate to sell the place. Number 6. Ashton and Mila. The couple made famous by co-starring in That 70s Show has enjoyed the fruits of their labor. With a daughter on the way, the couple purchased this $10 million home on April 1st, 2014 that is stupider than Kutcher's That 70s Show character. The house is on a private street in a gated community in Beverly Hills that is well away from paparazzi. The home is 7,300 square feet and has 3 huge bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. Admittedly, its dimensions are slightly dwarfed by the other insane pads on this list, but when's the last time you saw either of these people in a good movie? Number 5. Enya. When you look at the fact that Enya has sold more records than One Direction and calls Bono her neighbor, you would assume that the Irish singer has a pretty insane lifestyle. And you would be right, though not in the ways you might imagine. Despite being world famous, the singer has only been spotted in public a handful of times in the last decade, and apparently men find her dark and challenging. She lives in a small castle in Ireland as a recluse. Apparently, her only constant company is cats, a lot of cats that live on the property. When she moved in the late 90s, Enya had the entire house redone. Her bedroom opens to the Irish Sea, and she has incredible views of the Wicklow Mountains on one side and the Dalkey Islands on the other. Her music and successes are unique and will never happen again. Based off her living situation, she could also be called the world's wealthiest cat lady. Number 4. Howard Stern. $200,000 for hurricane shutters? $10 million on renovations alone? No problem for the most successful radio personality of all time. Stern reportedly spent $52 million to purchase this insane mansion in Palm Beach, Florida in early 2013 and had those refurbishments done in early 2016. The specialty shutters weren't cheap, and so, as you might guess, they are very heavy duty and able to withstand winds and debris impact of up to 276 miles per hour. They are also remote controlled and cover every one of the house's many windows. The home itself is even more remarkable. The mansion boasts 12.5 bathrooms, in case the first 12 are taken, 5 bedrooms, and sprawls over 19,000 feet across the Florida beachfront. Number 3. Dwayne Wade and Gabby Union. Dwayne Wade is a star guard for the Chicago Bulls. Gabrielle Union is a very well-known actress. The couple is, by all accounts, very happy together, and with salaries that could afford them cribs like this, who could blame them? The ecstatic couple got married on August 30th, 2014, and leased this ridiculous castle for the occasion. The house was priced at $10.9 million before it was delisted shortly before the wedding. The property was built by architect Charles Seeger for himself and includes a giant landlocked moat and formal gardens that surround the property. Number 2. Bill Gates. Though the richest man in the world is known as a charitable man who spends his money frugally, he opened his wallet a little bit to build his dream home. The home cost a record-setting $63 million to build and took 7 years to complete. The property lies in the hills of Medina, Washington, and is surrounded by nature. The estate has a variety of garages, including an underground cave that can hold 10 cars, 6 kitchens tended by a 24-hour on-call chef, a 1,500 square foot theater, a 2,100 square foot private library, and a massive aquarium. This home is incredible. But of course, it's not the only property the billionaire owns on the West Coast. He also bought a ranch in California for $18 million that has a private racetrack. Number 1. Mukesh Ambani. Ambani is no celebrity. He's the chairman of Reliance Industries, a gigantic conglomerate holding company in India. But he is a billionaire and had this crazy pad built in South Mumbai that is valued at around $1 billion, making it the most expensive private residential property on the planet. The 27-story property, called Antilia, and its unique design have been a part of the Mumbai skyline since being completed in 2010. The extravagant home's location in a destitute area of Mumbai is extremely controversial. The property has 6 floors of underground parking, 3 helipads, and a total interior space of over 400,000 square feet. The crib also features 9 high-speed elevators, a 2-story health center, and 6 floors for Ambani and his family. An entire floor is dedicated to servicing Ambani's stable of cars.
Hello once again and welcome to Property News Update. Nicola McDougall from Bricks and Mortar Media will join me in just a moment and we will have a look at these stories. Overseas investment into Australia may just increase. Why is that? What's a unicorn sale? Well, it's a unicorn sale for a reason and we'll tell you what that reason is. A hitman's former home hits the market. 80,000 reasons why the market might struggle. And why don't you try sleeping in a prison cell? And as well as that, we've got our classic building stuff up. So this week it's actually a builders playing up story and why women live longer than men. Love this one too. Back in just a moment.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on your staff costs by outsourcing the low-value, repeatable tasks so your team can focus on growing your business? Beepo is an outsourcing provider focused on the real estate industry. With an English-speaking, tertiary qualified and fully trained team in the Philippines, Beepo will give your business the boost it needs to start growing and returning value to you. For more information, visit beepo.com.au.
And joining me once again, Nicola McDougall from Bricks and Mortar Media. G'day, Nicola.
Hello, Kevin. Good to see you again.
It's always good to see you, my dear. Thank you. You're looking bright and sunshiny.
Yes, indeed. Enjoying this lovely autumnal weather.
Yes, I know. Yes, I was going to say it's winter, but it's not too bad, actually. Not too bad at all.
Not too bad at all.
Okay, the investor. Give us our first story. Overseas investment into Australian property could just be set to increase with certainty back in the market after the majority government win. Real estate funds may choose to divert capital to Australia from less stable global investment destinations. That's according to Simon Storey, who is the head of international investments at Australia's. Is it JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle?
Oh, yeah, they just call it JLL these days.
JLL?
Yes.
Yep.
Jones Lang LaSalle in the old way.
Yeah, well, that's the way I remember it. JLL. So,
am I answering that question, or what are we doing next?
No, we're going to talk about it. But you told me you don't know much about this subject anyway. But we don't have to know a lot about it to talk about it. But what they're effectively saying is that Australia's become. What am I doing? I'm trying to organise all these sheets of paper here. Here we go. All right.
Well, okay.
They're saying that Australia's become a lot more attractive. But on the back of this, I thought we might have a quick talk about what has happened after the election. Within 7 days, within a matter of days, the market was reporting extra activity. More people had open homes. We sold our house by auction last weekend. And, we had about 60 people here, I think 4 registered bidders. So, we're very happy. And we saw it. We saw evidence of that. So the market's really picked up.
Indeed, and even I know that was a great result, Kevin. But I also hear that in Sydney they had some great auction results on Saturday as well, and it just goes to show that confidence level when the consumer sentiment, when there's a bit of fear. Federal elections always impact a market, but this one triply so, I suppose, with the potential of those changes to housing taxation policies, and it just created a sense of unease out there amongst, the market and everything. And everyone was clearly just sitting around waiting to see what happened. And as well, we've had the trifecta, I guess, in the last week as well, Kevin, to your benefit, which is amazing, which is also the announcement from APRA that they will be looking at, I think we could safely say will be, relaxing the rules in regards to lending criteria, and then the potential, next week for an interest rate cut as well. So it is kind of like the trifecta that the market needed to kind of get kicked into. What are we in? Second gear? Third gear? Depending on where you are.
Which gear we're in, but if you look at Sydney, 7 out of 10 houses selling, which was phenomenal. We haven't seen that for quite a long time. So, certainly sentiment is picking up quite nicely. Hey, a quick reminder for you that Real Estate Talk number 360 is out tomorrow. Increased time to sell shows a little bit of market pressure. A story from CoreLogic here about how days on market, that's the time, Nicola, from when you first list to when you sell, that's doubled in the last 12 months. But it's not really surprising, but we look around Australia at the cap cities and what's happened. Interesting to see what's happened in Hobart, so you'll pick that up in the story as well. We talk about Doug getting it wrong, a prediction from someone leading up to the election. And we talked to Doug Driscoll about that. Also, renters have a reason to be optimistic. New Zealand's equivalent of negative gearing is going to be retrospective. This is interesting because, Nicola, had Labor won the election, they promised to make changes to negative gearing. Well, that's actually in a way come into New Zealand, and if it passes, it's going to be made retrospective into this year. So that will be really interesting to watch what happens there. Early signs of a turnaround in the market. That's all in the RET show, which is out tomorrow. Make sure you get it. Okay, let's go to story number 2. This one comes from our favourite website in New Zealand called Stuff. I just love it because of the title. This is a unicorn sale. So this is a New Zealand website giving us an Australian story, but hey, this is a global show. Who cares? No longer the realms of reality, get it right, Kevin, TV. 2 Sydney households have decided to swap homes permanently. I love this story.
You go, my friend.
No, you go. I was going to make a real estate comment.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, from reading through it, a classic yarn about the fact that often people don't actually move very far from their home. Well, it might be a couple of streets away or within the same suburb. It might be the adjoining suburb. But in this example, in this story, Kevin, a couple who live down the street, turned up at the open home, mentioned to the agent that they were, down the street and were interested in that house. And I presume that perhaps their house was slightly smaller or different for the vendor. And they decided to stitch up a bit of a deal, and a classic example of understanding what the vendor's motivations are, because I think she didn't want to go through an auction process for whatever the reason might be, and decided to sell to a couple down the road, and now it sounds like they've become fast friends. So it's a pretty nice story.
It is a nice story. I read through it trying to work out whether or not the agent made 2 sales, and he probably would have, but there was no mention of commissions in there. And
no, I was looking for the same.
Yeah, were you? Yeah, well, we didn't find it, but no doubt there would have been a commission, but it wouldn't have been a double commission, I wouldn't have thought. It's somewhat of a negotiated sale. So, yeah, but an interesting story and very, very nice. Hey, soon we're going to give you why women live longer than men, and it is a classic, let me tell you. We'll bring that up in just a moment. But before we do, story number 3 from The Real Deal. A hitman's former home hits the market. The Oak Park bungalow, now this is in Chicago, I think, was once owned by Jack, is it McGurn?
Something like that.
McGurn.
Yes.
I've never heard of him. But he's the alleged mastermind behind the 1929 St. Valentine's Day massacre. When you click on the link to have a look at the story, there's a photograph of him there. He looks like quite a nice guy, actually.
I think there'd be plenty of people out there who would disagree. Was interesting. The story's talking about in some of my own little research that I did before the show.
Yep.
The fact that he was in some way connected to Al Capone, but then the massacre, the Valentine's Day massacre, was people that were in Al Capone's mob or gang or whatever it is. So clearly they had a bit of a falling out. Interesting,
it was an insider trader thing, wasn't it? I think
something very. What was interesting. And then reading the story as well, going through to a few different things about the story, he actually died. He didn't last very long, which is clearly unsurprising as a gangster. Died in about the early 1930s, I believe, a couple of years after the massacre, after trying his hand as becoming a professional golfer, which I thought was kind of funny.
I didn't see that.
And ended up getting gunned down, I believe, in a bowling alley. Kind of an interesting story, but also the fact that Al Capone's property sold recently as well for double its listing price.
Did it?
But it was still only about $220,000, I think, and it had previously been worth a lot more, but had actually been caught up in the GFC and things like that, and had the keys handed back. But just goes to show, those gangsters, they don't tend to live that long, do they? So if he did buy the house, he probably didn't lay his head there very often.
It reminds me of all the stories where something goes wrong in a neighbourhood and then the reporters will turn up, as a mass murder delivering next door to someone, and they'll say, "Oh, he seemed like quite a nice guy to me. I wouldn't have thought that he was a murderer." Yeah. And you wonder whether, people living next door to this guy, Jack, thought, "Well, what a nice guy. I can't imagine that he would have been a hitman." But who knows?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, he sounds like he was a reasonably good one, but not that good because he ended up getting gunned down himself in a bowling alley.
He did. Hey, we're going to give you the next instalment in Why Women Live Longer Than Men. And in this series, we give you some classic photos. Have a look at this one. Easy to see how he got out there, but I don't know,
how's he going to get back?
What if he loses it? Well, there's a good point. He's got to go backwards. I didn't think of that. He's not about to bring his legs together and jump, is he?
No. So what's he going to do? Going there, as you can
back.
see, it looks relatively simple. And with some of the designs, I've lived in a couple of properties that have those super high ceilings that might need to have some work done on it at some stage. One would think you would actually use a ladder
scaffolding or something.
But yeah, he goes in, but it's not like he's got a reversing camera.
Well, what if he scuffs the wall? Who's going to clean it? Oh, goodness gracious.
Anyway.
Crazy stuff. Wait till we show you the building stuff up later in the show too. Hey, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll give you the 80,000 reasons why the market might just struggle. Back in just a moment.
Tall people. Constantly making the world a better place.
There you go.
And how does the world reward you? Stretch out with up to 40% more legroom in Economy X on Virgin Australia.
Welcome back to the show. From the Sydney Morning Herald, we see 80,000 reasons the market might struggle. This is all to do with oversupply. We've covered this story many times, Nicola, haven't we? Oversupply of units, but it probably is really tanking up a bit in the Sydney market. We've heard that from even some developers.
What's sort of interesting about that as well, Kevin, because clearly the Sydney market has been a bit woeful for a few years now, and the commentary seems to have concentrated on the housing sector. I believe the unit market, perhaps for affordability reasons, held its ground for a bit longer, but clearly that's not the case anymore. And just, I suppose, a classic example. Well, do you know what? I mean, it depends. When was this story written? If it was written, last week before we've heard the news over the last 7 days of how the market.
This week. It's this week's story. This is a current show, We only look at stories from this week.
Maybe because the market's changed so much in such a short space of time that, when it was posted, the journo might have written it, a week ago, for example. So the demand for those units may increase quicker.
With a lot of these things, though, it's confusing because these might not be 80,000 units that are currently on the market. They could actually be in the pipeline coming through. And developers, if they sense that a market is going to become oversupplied, they'll sit on their land, they'll just land bank.
Or go somewhere else, and we've seen that in every capital city. And as we know, a cycle it goes through each element of it, and eventually you get to the point, say for example in Brisbane, where the market is starting to strengthen somewhat after a number of years. Like I think the latest figures show the unit prices in Brisbane grew 3% in 5 years. Which is terrible, right? I own one of those units, but it is what it is.
By 3%, did it? And
no,
I think,
but over 5 years, the cap growth was
used to really strong growth. Yeah, I accept what you say, but still, growth is growth. And if you've got it, and you're getting a return on it, you're getting some growth, and you're getting a return as well. So that's the good thing about property.
And it's also, I guess, it's one of those things, that we should all be proud of ourselves, yourself included, Kevin, that you sold the week after the election, was the fortitude and I guess sometimes the bravery of just holding on and believing in the investments in your assets and believing that this all a cycle and things will, turn around at some point. We never can pinpoint that. If we could, we'd be in the Bahamas somewhere.
Yeah, it's a process. Selling a home, we sold it by auction. Auction, it's a process. You've got to believe in the process and go with it. And, we had a particularly good agent and a very good auctioneer. So we got a great result. Hey, let's go to the last story. This one comes from Homes and Property. Try sleeping in a prison cell. Now, this was an old courthouse, I think, with an attached prison cell. An imposing Grade 2 listed former courthouse. It's been turned into a 10-bedroom home with jail cells converted into bedrooms. We'll try and see if you can bring up a couple of photos here too, just to show what it's like. Have a look at that bedroom. We can bring that up. That bedroom that's obviously in a jail cell.
Yes.
A window.
I know. I don't know. I know. I mean, I'm pleased to say, and unsurprisingly, the only jail cell I've ever been in was down in either Launceston or Hobart. I think it might be Launceston years and years and years ago, and I was having a look around Tasmania, and you can go through the old courthouses and where the convicts, I suppose, were kept when they did bad things as well. And back in those days, they had them like sleeping. They couldn't even stand up. They had just like a space where they could lie down underneath the courthouse. So that's the only sort of courthouse I've ever been to. But I don't know, it's beautiful. I mean, just a classic example of a building that's almost older than sort of the Treaty of Waitangi in New Zealand. I think it's been there from the 1850s. So quite extraordinary, and they've done a great job. Bloody hell!
It'd have some really good memories. Hey, let's bring you the.
Well, if those walls could talk, would we want to hear what they're saying? Is the question. I tell you what,
if you walked into it before it was either renovated or updated, you'd probably see some interesting writings on the wall too, and scratch marks and. All the every day they'd put another stripe up on the wall. Yeah, all those stories.
I wonder if they did some type of like cleansing ceremony before.
You mean with Snow White, like cleaning the walls?
No, cleansing isn't getting rid of the bad juju. Getting rid of the bad juju.
They do a smoking ceremony or something.
Well, that's right. Exactly.
Hey, what do people on a building site do when they get bored? Let's bring the photo up and show you what the naughty boys have done on this construction site. Look at that. A game of noughts and crosses. Now,
I love it.
Now, what I'm going to challenge you for, and I thought a lot about this, Nicola. Let's play noughts and crosses. Okay, you can be the cross and I'll be the nought. The cross goes first. I've done my nought. Have you got the photo in front of you?
No, I don't. So I'm just looking at you, Kevin. That's all that I need.
Well, I want to play a game with you. I was hoping we'd play noughts and crosses here. Oh, well, it's up on the screen. You can't see it. But anyway, there's some classic moves you can make on noughts and crosses. And I spent about 5 minutes trying to remember what it was. But it is a blocking move. And I think most people go to put the cross in the centre, which you can see on this photo.
Yes.
That's not necessarily the best place to put it. That's where most people go. But if you put it on one of the outside ones, and I forget whether it's in the middle or at the corner, I can't remember, but there is a typical blocking move, and then you get it blocked both ways and you can win every time. But anyway, I spent 5 or 10 minutes before we went on air and just see if I could rework it. I used to be pretty good at that, but I forgot. Anyway, there you go. I was looking forward to seeing if you knew what the blocking move was.
You should have preempted me, and I would have. But if it's anything like my card abilities, you would have lost.
Oh, okay.
Card playing. I'm quite good at cards.
I must remember not to play with you. Yeah.
Not very good at Scrabble, funnily enough, since I'm a journalist. My bestie, who's an accountant, beats me every time in Scrabble.
You'd have to be.
No, because I go for the big words, and she's an accountant and goes for strategy and the numbers, and I'm trying to just impress everyone with my vocab.
Economy, yeah. Hey, Nicola, great talking to my friend. Thank you very much for your contribution this week, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Nicola McDougall from Bricks and Mortar Media. That's it for this week. Thank you very much for your company, and we look forward to seeing you next time. See you then, Nicola.
Bye-bye.
With demand for luxury residential apartments in Manhattan increasing, and a severe lack of land available for development, we've seen the rise of super slender skyscrapers across the city's skyline. While this trend originated and first became identifiable in New York through structures like 432 Park Avenue and 53 West 53rd Street, the phenomenon is no longer limited to the city and is beginning to have global repercussions. Around the world, developers are now striving to maximize floor areas and value from small sites by employing the super slender high-rise technique. But while such an approach does improve return on investment, the limited site access and additional engineering associated with building these towers makes them much more expensive to develop. Now in Australia, contractor Hickory Group have pioneered a construction method that uses prefabricated modules to improve quality, streamline the building process, and reduce overall construction costs. While the projects using this method have so far been modest in comparison to the super tall giants of New York City, Hickory are about to take their prefabricated building method to new heights in the form of Australia's most slender skyscraper, the 60-storey Collins House in Melbourne. Collins House is located in the heart of Melbourne on the city's prestigious Collins Street. Famed for its historic streetscape and home to some of the country's tallest buildings, Collins Street and Melbourne as a whole is in the midst of a high-rise building boom, the likes of which Australia has never seen. With soaring demand for high-rise living and commercial vacancies at an all-time low, at least 20 skyscrapers are currently under construction, including the city's tallest building, the 317-metre Australia 108. The demand has driven land values to record highs, with a modest site just a block from Collins House recently selling for over 140 million Australian dollars. Now, developers are pushing engineering to the extreme in order to make the most of the small parcels of land they are able to acquire. The Collins House site is a mere 12.5 metres wide. Fronting the bustling Collins Street, and with occupied commercial buildings on either side, developers' golden age had no choice but to build upward in order to maximise floor area. As part of the development, air rights were purchased from an adjoining building along the eastern boundary, allowing architects Bates Smart to design a 4.5 metre cantilever over the neighbouring property and increase the size of each floor by some 35% from the 14th storey upwards. With only one access point to the site, manoeuvring plant, materials and other equipment during construction was always going to be a struggle. While the first 14 stories of the tower are constructed from concrete, Hickory's prefabricated structural units form the remainder of the skyscraper's height. The use of prefabricated techniques has had a remarkable impact on the quality, speed, and level of safety on the Collins House scheme. With the majority of components assembled off-site and craned into place within an hour of delivery, the project's programme has been reduced by 30%. These prefabricated modules also reduce the extent of external safety screens and barriers required, as the building is enclosed once the module is in place. Being assembled off-site under controlled factory conditions allowed the modules to be inspected and any defects rectified prior to delivery, drastically improving the quality of the finished product and further reducing downtime on site. Offering 271 luxury apartments across its 60 floors, as well as a host of residential amenities, Hickory's modular system provided a more flexible floor plate that can be adapted across the levels, depending on the intended use of each space. Currently rising toward its 190-metre total height, Collins House will become one of the tallest prefabricated buildings in the world when it completes in 2019. While Collins House is some way off the 426-metre height of New York's 432 Park Avenue, the slenderness ratio of the two structures is almost the same, at 1:16 and 1:15 respectively, making Collins House a powerful case study for the prefabrication of other super slender towers around the world. With developers and contractors constantly searching for new ways to reduce building costs, keep standards high, and speed up construction, the success of pioneering methods like this, and on a building like Collins House, could set new benchmarks for the industry in the years ahead.